All right, what is up, friends and fellow anti-nerds? Scott Shepper here. I'm gonna share with you something that I find, well, I maybe used to find infuriating. Infuriating. I can even talk now. I find kind of humorous and funny, and that is the bastardization and misconceptions of Zettelkasten. Okay, and what the problem is, and here's what I'm gonna do. I have not even watched any of these videos. Okay, so I typed in Zettelkasten and I'm gonna go through. We're just gonna go through, and I'm gonna react with you. I've never watched this video. I'm just gonna click into it, and I'm gonna show you just how simply misguided and all of the things wrong with modern day teaching of Zettelkasten and why it is so confusing. Okay, so let's just dive in. I'm gonna
Effective
stop
knowledge
talking.
management methods.
All right. So like right before I started this video, I watched like the first 15 seconds and I tested the audio to see if it even like actually works. So that's all I've seen so far. Okay, so let's just dive in. All right.
Hello, my name is Shu. In this video, I want to talk about Zettelkasten method, which is one of my favorite.
All right. First, I have to stop already. Okay, Zettelkasten method. So this whole Zettelkasten method thing is a term that is been invented and concocted and created by Zettelkasten.de. And the guy behind that is a guy named Sasha Fast and Christian. Christian is a software developer who created software called The Archive, which sells for, I forget how much money it sells for. So Zettelkasten method isn't even a thing. The creator of Zettelkasten, he called it a note box, right? That's what note means Zettel in and Kasten in German means box. So note box. And it wasn't a method. Like the creator of Zettelkasten, Nicholas Luhmann, outlines this perfectly in his paper, his working paper, which is called Communication with Note Boxes, which actually you can find by going to my website, scottshepper.com/Zettelkasten. I have the paper there, which he just outlines it. Here's like it's pedantic German, description of what Zettelkasten is. And, Zettelkasten is essentially not even a method. Okay. So I had to even just stop
Personal
there. All right.
knowledge management systems. Zettelkasten method is one of the most effective knowledge management methods, but it's not known by many people. The word Zettelkasten means box of cards in German. This method
Not box of cards. It literally Zettel means note or slip of paper, and Kasten means box. So note box in German, actually.
was developed by Nicholas Luhmann.
Also, it wasn't developed by Nicholas Luhmann. Nicholas Luhmann is the latest, I guess you could call it, originator to put his stamp on the specific note box method of using three boxes. However, the history and the scholarly history of actually using a note box to manage knowledge goes back to around like at least the 1500s with Conrad Gessner. I outlined this in the preface of my book, and there's like 15 other people that also used note boxes. So in the late 1500s, like late early Renaissance scholars, even medieval scholars, and it started actually a very rich tradition dating back. A lot of it was actually in religious texts and trying to process the Bible, and they used note boxes. So actually, believe it or not, this German sociologist Nicholas Luhmann did not actually invent the idea of using paper slips to manage knowledge. It dates back at least about you know I don't know 400 years before Nicholas Luhmann. All right, let's keep going.
A German sociologist. He may not be super famous, but what makes him stand out from the crowd is not just the fact he was an exceptional scholar, but also his writing efficiency. In 30 years, he published 58 books and hundreds of articles. How did he manage to write?
Yeah, efficiency isn't necessarily the key benefit of the system. Luhmann wrote actually it wasn't 58 books. He wrote closer to 70 books, and he had at least over like 600 manuscripts that they found in his literary estate after he passed away. And the reason why he was so effective actually is not necessarily because of the Zettelkasten. Believe it or not, his wife died when he was around 50 years old, and so what he ended up doing all day is he spent doing what he loved, and he loved just reading and taking notes and writing his 30-year theory of everything. And in actually one of my videos that I did with Hans Georg Moeller, who is an academic and actually studied under Luhmann, or studied Luhmann very, very closely, he pointed out that actually Luhmann produced so many articles and also books is because back then they weren't peer reviewed. So that's another aspect of this. Okay. So there's this mystical component that's really propagated by Sankey Arens and how to take smart notes, that the Zettelkasten will somehow enable you to, spit out like 58 books in a very short time period. However, like I created a poll in the Reddit Zettelkasten community recently, and I was like, okay, out of all of you 17,000 people, most of whom use digital Zettelkasten, by the way, I was like, out of all of you 17,000 people, how many of you have actually used it to write a book, and can you post the book? Guess what? Not freaking one of them posted a book that they've written with a Zettelkasten, and they've been hanging out in there since 2015. So it's a lot of like this productivity porn, majoring in the minor, this masturbatory group, and this infatuation with like procrastinating by linking your notes using Obsidian. It's really horse crap. Okay. So I'm not all about that. I'm about doing things the old way so that you can actually produce content. All right. So anyway, that's what I'll say on that. Look at
so much.
I'm only 40 seconds into this and I can't help myself. Let's keep going.
It's thanks to his unique knowledge management system, Zettelkasten. Zettelkasten allowed him to build huge web of knowledge, retrieve the right memory.
All right, that web of knowledge thing is a misnomer. It didn't actually look like that. It was actually more sequential branches of knowledge, which you can view on Luhmann's online archive. So this whole thing is actually ripped from, essentially the Obsidian world and all of those bubble graph boys that are just like creating a bunch of notes and not actually producing anything. So that's kind of it wasn't really a web of knowledge. Luhmann did refer to it as like a spider-like, network and a cybernetic network, but it's also a tree-like structure. It wasn't loosely organized. All right, let's keep going.
When needed, find meaningful connections among topics, and develop his ideas, arguments, and discussions efficiently. The process of a Zettelkasten is simple. All you need is small boxes, index cards, and a pen. Luhmann had 2 boxes.
That might be the very first thing I actually agree with.
One for bibliographical notes with the reference details, and a brief note about the content of the literature, and the main box where he collected.
This is false. This is wrong. So, first off, yes, Johannes Schmidt, the scholar who actually runs the University of Bielefeld's institution, which essentially has created a 90,000 plus note card archive of Nicholas Luhmann's work. He refers to them as reference notes and maybe a reference box. I like to call them bib notes or a bib box, and they store bibliography cards. Okay. So that's whatever. That's a technicality. It's not really, that's just a piss poor term. Reference box. Like, what does that even mean? And the second thing is main box. Okay. Ideas, theories. When was this created? Okay. Main box. So he actually doesn't even use Sankey Arens' terms yet. So 3 years ago. There's actually a third box, and that third box is the index box. The index box is how you look up human readable terms, like, terms like fear. And then that navigates you into the main box, which is organized by alphanumeric, or really numeric alpha, because it starts with a number, then it ends with a letter, numeric alpha card addresses. Okay. So it's actually 3 boxes. This is completely false, but don't worry. This Shu Omi guy has only misguided 374,000 people over the previous 3 years with this mistake. But whatever, let's keep moving on.
And created new ideas and insights. The first step of Luhmann's Zettelkasten is taking literature notes. When you're reading a book or article, always have a pen and index card with you. And when you find information you don't want to forget or think you might use in your writing or thinking, write it down in your index card instead of highlighting or underlining. But you have to be careful that it has to be brief to make it easy to review later, and you have to.
Okay. God damn it. I need to remove this, these freaking, why do I have freaking, how do I remove these? Okay. These closed captions. This is killing me. All right. Anyway, I've removed the closed captions. Now let's keep going through this thing. So here's what I want to point out here is he tells you to create literature notes. Okay. And first off, literature notes, that's an invention. That's a term invented by Sankey Arens. Luhmann never used, meaning the supposed purported creator of Zettelkasten, he never actually called them literature notes. He all he said is take reading notes on a card that's oriented in a 4x6 inch card that's vertical. Okay, so basically take notes from reading notes on a 4x6 inch card oriented vertically. And the other thing is, this guy's saying keep it short, be extremely selective. What does that even mean, right? And this is something that he's basically just regurgitating what Zonke Arens says in How to Take Smart Notes, which Zonke Arens already bastardized and completely made vague Luhmann's whole system. That's where this literature notes comes from. That comes from Zonke Arens. So keep it short, be extremely selective. Next, write in your own words, no copy and paste. Okay, well, that's kind of redundant because in the world of freaking analog and actually using and working in the way that Luhmann did, which is what I contend is the right way, it's analog in physical form, there is no option to copy and paste. So guess what? You don't even have to have discipline when you use analog, okay? And then the other thing, this guy missed the most important part. Here, I'll just show you this. I have a free guide that I've just decided to actually print out, and I'm going to be giving away to people. And here's like a picture of what an actual here. I'll make this actually bigger so that you can see this. But this is actually what it looks like. Can you see that? Can you see that? So these cards should be oriented vertically, number one. And then number two, you see those page numbers? Okay, so you need to put page numbers on that card. Okay, so you need to orient yourself like where that, brief selective quote unquote idea came from. Okay, so, what this tells me, let's go back to this guy's video. This tells me is this guy like has no freaking idea what the hell he's even talking about. He's just summarizing Zonke Arens and using it to create some nice, views and get whatever he has, like 53,000 subscribers. Have you ever freaking even used a Zettelkasten? That's my question, because he left off the most important piece, which is you also need to put the page number and then the idea, from which that, page came, right? And from what page that idea stems from. You also, and what Luhmann has done, what I've done is a lot of the times just showing you this again is you'll see, I'll pull this down. You'll see that there's, certain terms are underlined. You see that, right? That underline cues you to then go to your index so that you know where to place and install that idea. Okay, so anyway, this just shows me this guy really has no idea what the hell he's talking about. Let's keep going on.
To write it in your own words. This means no copy and pasting. Writing in your own words may take a while, but it forces you to really understand what they mean. The second step is taking bibliographical notes whenever you finish reading something. Luhmann wrote down the reference in
Good job. He actually called it bibliographic notes or bib notes. Cool.
Information on one side of an index card and a brief note about content.
Okay. Again, he what is reference details? This is something Zonke Arens just forgets or skips out on. What are reference details? What they are is, what you want to write down just to explain it is actually, the author's last name, then his first name, then the title of the book. That way, when you then categorize and file and install that card, back into your Zettelkasten and you put it into your bibliography box, your bib box, it's organized by last name. So that's why you even wanted to do these reference notes. Okay.
On the other side. Then he kept
all right. Now, did you see that? Let's go back here for just 1 second.
On one side of an index card and a brief note.
Here's the other mistake. Is Luhmann did not look at how that second card on the other side, brief note about the content, that's oriented in a horizontal way. Luhmann did not do this. He created them in a vertical manner so that you can store more notes and more ideas per book. And then he filed it. So once again, I don't know if this guy has any idea what the hell he's talking about or if he's ever created his own Zettelkasten. But let's keep going.
About content on the other side. Then he kept cards in the bibliographical box with the literature notes. The third step.
Wait. What the hell did I just see? Let's go back here. So for some crazy reason, he invented reference notes and literature notes, which, let's be clear, this literature notes thing, is an invented term by Zonke Arens, the author of How to Take Smart Notes. Reference notes is essentially an invented term by this Shu Omi guy. And it's also a term used by Johannes Schmidt to describe it, but they're both the same freaking thing. Now you've already overcomplicated and actually stated something that is completely false. Now people that are trying to even figure out what the hell you're teaching here, now you're giving them wrong intel, wrong information, and they're bound to be confused. All right. But all right. Anyways, there's only, like I said, 374,000 people that have been misguided by this term. Okay, let's keep going.
with the literature notes. The third step, probably the most important step, is making.
All right. Make permanent notes. Again, this is a made up term by Zonke Arens and probably the most important step. It's not, but let's keep going.
Permanent notes. Go through each note you made in the previous step while thinking about how they relate to what you're learning, your interest, thinking, or research. Your goal is not to collect as many notes as possible, but to add new values to your existing ideas, arguments, and discussions.
Actually, no, the most important thing, believe it or not, is actually producing output content, meaning knowledge products, either, producing a book, producing articles, essays, courses, all of that. Your goal is not to collect as, many notes as possible. Yes. Uh, but it's to add values to your existing ideas, arguments, and discussions. No, not really. I mean, that's what I think a lot of these bubble graph boys do, and all these like Obsidian knowledge junkies that hang out in the Obsidian forums do. They basically just, it's a masturbatory intellectual, procrastination. That's all they do. It's like all of their notes and all of their linking metadata tags, all of that stuff just ends up existing in their like overblown Obsidian vault and really not really transition into anything. All right, let's keep going.
What's important here is finding meaningful connections between what you just learned and what you already know. By doing so, you build a web of knowledge. The more web of knowledge you develop, the easier it becomes to learn and retrieve the information from your brain. This is because the more information means more hooks we can use to connect the new information to.
Um, yeah, that's the problem with digital. Digital makes it so easy to select and install and put ideas into your, Obsidian vault or whatever, that what you end up creating is a whole pile, a whole repository of just mediocre, lackluster information, lackluster ideas. The thing with analog, one of the benefits of analog is it forces you to be very, very selective because it's a pain in the ass to actually, when you're sitting and reading or like lounging back to reading to actually write it down, underline it, think about where it goes. And also, you have to manually create an index for your ideas. With digital, you don't even have to do that. So, the more information equals more hooks we can use to connect new information to. Like, no, I mean, like, if you want to basically get lost in a black sea of knowledge and forget everything that you've created and put into your Obsidian vault or whatever, 6 months from now, then sure, yeah. But if you actually want to selectively grab knowledge and turn it into something, then use analog. Like all this stuff, yeah, it's pretty inaccurate.
And more connected information also means more cues we can use to trigger the right memory.
Not if you use digital. Once again, it's like with digital, if you create so many, you know, hooks and things and just search terms and all of that, like you're not really stamping anything onto your actual, working memory, onto your mind, onto your brain. Like when you use and write things down by hand, yes, it takes a little bit longer, but it's also stamped onto your mind. Whereas, with digital, like you don't really have any cues stamped onto your mind. And because there's no cues, you're not really triggering the right memory. There's no triggering. All you're doing is just basically extracting text from books, when you use digital and Obsidian and Rome Research and Logseek and all of that, and you're just diarrheaing it into a freaking digital repository of information. It's pretty much useless. All right.
To find such connections efficiently, ask yourself, how does this idea fit into what I know? Can this be explained by something else? What does X mean for Y? How can I use this idea to explain something else? Additionally, it's important.
Okay. Let's go back
Why?
here.
How can I
Let's check this out. Okay. So this is once again kind of like the typical sales pitch of all these bubble graph boys and PKM productivity junkies. It's like, and even in like the linking your thinking course, it's like they kind of it's almost like literally freaking imagine that guy in the Angels and Demons movie, that basically he whips himself with like the freaking whip that has spikes on it and chastises himself to discipline himself. That's basically what these productivity gurus teach. They're like, oh, well, with every file or every note you create, you need to like discipline yourself and ask yourself, how does this idea fit into what I already know? And what does X mean for Y? How can I use this idea to explain Z? And then I'm just going to link it. What the hell does that even do? After a while, your willpower is going to be depleted, and all of that willpower and all that mental energy, that mind energy that is scarce, that you would have actually used to inject into creating a book or an essay or an article, is all depleted by using these masturbatory invented rules by all of these digital PKM fanboys that this guy is seemingly just inventing. And the king of this masturbatory, the source of this masturbatory PKM productivity junk food, is none other than Zonke Arens, which this guy, this Shu Ami, is clearly just regurgitating. So here's what I'm saying is, yes, like, how does this idea fit into what I already know? See, what he's describing is when you actually take a physical bib card. This is why analog is so important. If you want to build a Zettelkasten, you need to do it the right way, the analog way. It is the way. And here's why. Is because you don't need to have the mental discipline. You don't need to whip yourself like that guy in freaking Angels and Demons. Because why? Is because you've taken notes on a bib card. You're forced to then go back to your Zettelkasten and go, okay, where should I file this? How does this already fit into what I already know? You don't have to actually like, you know, basically invent rules for yourself like you do in digital. You actually just have to do it, and it's fun, it's natural, and actually kicks off something in the brain. I talk about this in my book, this whole concept. Whenever you're trying to relate something to another thing and assimilate it into your knowledge base, like into your main box in your actual physical analog Zettelkasten, this like dopamine reaction is kicked off, and it actually makes it a lot of fun. So it's fun to go back and review some of your old notes. It's fun in physical form, but I don't know about you. When I'm staring at a freaking computer and searching for stuff, that's not that much fun. And especially when you have to use these four rules and, have them in your, digital obsidian vault or next to you and force yourself every single day to do this. That's not fun. But when you don't have to force yourself to do this, because in analog there's no other options than to figure out where to file it in your box, then you don't have to have willpower. You don't have to. It's essentially, it's counterintuitive and paradoxical and seemingly contradictory, but the friction of physical knowledge systems and analog knowledge systems is actually freeing. So you're not going to just dick around in Obsidian forums all day and try to figure out new meta tags and pull in the new Obsidian update and all of that bull crap. But anyway, I could go on, but let's just keep going.
Use this idea to explain something else. Additionally, it's important to find keywords in your notes to find connections among notes. But finding keyword is not about where to store a note, but about how to retrieve it. When deciding a keyword, many people
I don't even know what he means by this, but let's keep going.
ask which.
I mean, the keywords is, built into, like I said, the third box that actually comprises a Zettelkasten, which he missed out on, he's claiming there's only two boxes. So anyway, let's keep going.
Keyword is most fitting, or
okay, so which keyword is most fitting? Which category does it fall into? Yeah, you don't even, if you actually use a Zettelkasten, a real Zettelkasten, at least not, some digital note linking bubble graph boy, Frankenstein thing that this guy probably uses. You don't even have to ask what category does it fall into. All you need to think about is like what keyword, what idea. It's not really a keyword, it's a key term or a key phrase that this idea falls into. And you just look up your index and go into your index box, look it up and find that idea. It's like, you don't even, it's just so, a lot of this stuff, once you actually learn how it really works, it's like, this is just so redundant. You don't have to have all these stupid complex rules that all of the digital Zettelkasten, wannabes and fanboys do, and, nerd out over in the Reddit Zettelkasten. Like that's all they do all day. It's they invent these freaking rules, and then they, have this, they try to live by it. And guess what? Like 96% of the people don't live by it. And the other, even greater than and then 99.99% of the people actually have no idea what the hell they're even doing. So that gives you a layout of the Zettelkasten environment today. All right, let's keep going.
Which category does this node fall into? Rather, you should ask yourself, in which circumstances would I want to stumble upon this node, even if I forget about it? Or when and how will I use this idea? Keywords should always be assigned with an eye towards the topic you are working on or interested in, never by looking at a node in isolation. After finding connection,
Let's go back to that.
working on or interested.
Do you like how, he doesn't even bother to hide what he's doing at this point? He's just literally grabbing a quote from Sankey Arens's book and he puts it in quotes. Keywords should always be assigned with an eye towards topics you're working on or interested in, never by looking at the notes in isolation. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Sankey Arens, what he's talking about is Luhmann actually in an interview, and you can find it. I have it in German. It's a book called Shortcuts, and I've literally sat there with the book Shortcuts. It's in German. I've taken my iPhone and Google Translate and translated it that way into English. That one, it was kind of a pain in the ass. So I actually paid a guy $2,500 to actually translate the entire thing because believe it or not, you can't just put it in DeepL. You can't just scan it. He actually sat there in a library in Germany or somewhere and translated it for me. And what Zonke Arens is actually kind of like the quote he is bastardized refers to a quote said by Nicholas Luhmann in the interview in the book Shortcuts. And he says basically Luhmann said, he's like, whenever I read always with an eye towards my Zettelkasten, meaning he has manually indexed, manually created an index of key terms, and he's thus stamped it on his mind, like I've just mentioned and talked about, which doesn't happen, by the way, in digital. In digital, you just create all of these loose connections, you create a ton of data, and you forget what the hell you've even created because you create so much. With analog, there's more friction. So you've kind of stamped a way of thinking, stamped key terms in your mind. Thus, you've primed your mind. So when you actually read, you have all of these manually created index key terms in your mind, in your working memory. And it's funny. It's like by working memory, I mean like years. Like I've started creating my index like 2 years ago. I still know what terms and how you kind of prime your mind to think of things. For example, if I'm reading the Black Swan and I come across the Pareto principle, well, I know, and it's literally back there. If you could see my Zettelkasten back there, look at that beast, right? Is I know that I have a term called big impact, meaning big impact things that come from tiny things. Right. The Pareto principle means like 80% of your results come from 20% of the input. So it has a big impact. So when I'm reading something and let's say the Black Swan and I come across the Pareto principle, all I have to do is I'm reading with my eye, with my mind towards my Zettelkasten because I've instantiated and stamped in my brain all of these key terms, a new way of thinking. So when I read the Black Swan, all I have to do is write down the page number, like, okay, 46. And then I write big impact and I underline it because guess what? I'm just going to go over to my Zettelkasten and then, basically install that idea in the big impact section, right? So that's how it actually works. This just doesn't seem to actually naturally happen in the digital world. You have to basically have all of these rules. Like this guy is basically regurgitating, which is essentially regurgitating Sankey Arens, which Sankey Arens essentially piss poorly, in my opinion, regurgitated what Nicholas Luhmann actually did. All right, let's keep going.
Never by looking at a node in isolation. After finding connections, add your new permanent nodes to the main box by finding each one behind relevant nodes, adding links to relevant nodes, and indexing in the way you can easily discover later. One extra links to relevant nodes.
Index to make them easy to discover later. Let's zoom in on this. EG 23, 24. Like, what does that even mean? Example given. So I'm going to index my notes to make them easy to discover later. Example given, 23, 24. Like, again, I don't think this guy even uses a Zettelkasten. I don't think Zettelkasten note-taking method simply explained. He's simply explaining a regurgitated 4-minute and 48-second version of Zonke Arens's, book, How to Take Smart Notes. And he's saying just add links to relevant notes, which is basically, here's how to use Obsidian 101, right? File each note H1 behind relevant notes. Yeah, I don't think he's actually doing that either, but let's keep going.
And indexing in the way you can easily discover later. One extra step you might need is taking fleeting notes. They are temporary.
Once again, a term invented by Zonke Arens. Fleeting notes is a term that we have no evidence of Nicholas Luhmann even using. And sometimes, he would like Luhmann never even used fleeting notes, right? And like if he did, they were fleeting, so he would throw them away. So it's like we have no evidence that he used fleeting notes in his literary estate, which had like 5,000 books and like I said, like 600 manuscripts. We would find like him actually maybe some notes on the manuscripts, like editing the manuscripts. But as far as like fleeting notes, like he was very sparse. He didn't need to do fleeting notes because his fleeting notes were essentially those notes that he took, like I showed you, on his bib card. Like those were the fleeting notes. This whole fleeting notes thing is bullshit. It's an invented notion, probably invented by Sankey Arens, which this is the first time it's ever come across. It's like this fleeting notes has been kind of created by Sankey Arens. So I don't know. Like once again, this guy's just regurgitating. Let's keep going.
Holders of your ideas and thoughts that pop into your mind, like ideas you get while taking a shower or walk. Always keep a notebook or piece of paper with you so you can write anytime. You should
Okay.
review your
Yeah.
fleeting notes within a few days before you forget what you meant. And
Oh my gosh. I just like this is such a stupid I mean, we all do this, right? We all have like we all get notes or like ideas, on a jog or in the shower, wherever, and we, write it down. And if we don't, we write it down somewhere. To-do list, it could be anywhere. It doesn't necessarily need to be like this is the crazy thing is like like this guy is they and all of them do this. They're like, okay, yeah, digital notes is fine. You can do analog, digital, or in physical form. And they say always keep a mini notebook. It's like, so wait, so the only thing in which Nicholas Luhmann like never actually probably did, and we have no evidence of it, and it's an invented term called fleeting notes. That's the one thing we should do analog, right? It's just freaking ridiculous. It's hilarious. All right, let's keep going.
you can develop them into permanent notes if necessary. After repeating those steps for a while, you will have developed a huge web of knowledge. Now, whenever you need to find a topic to write about, turn to your box of cards and see the lines of cards you developed. See what is missing, see what questions arise. You can then read more and take notes to develop your ideas and arguments further. When you are done with this process, you will already have a wealth of information in your hands. This means you don't have to start from scratch when writing. All you have to do now is reassemble your notes into a logical order and translate them into something.
I 100% guarantee you that this guy has no idea what the hell he's talking about right now. Like, what does this even mean? Reassemble notes into a logical order? Like, when you actually use a Zettelkasten, you are already, like he claimed earlier, you are already figuring out how to relate it and filing it behind the most similar note and idea. So it already is in like a logical order, right? And essentially translating them into something coherent. So yeah, I don't
Coherent.
I was gonna just not even talk about this because I've already dissected this like already, but let's just yeah, I just had to say that.
So that is a general workflow of Zettelkasten.
Thanks for the general workflow, and by general I mean like specifically wrong general workflow of Zettelkasten. That was just freaking fantastic. Thanks so much, Shu.
In the next video, I'll show you how to digitally implement this system using Roam. Thanks for watching.
Great. This was really just a frickin' uh, preview. This was just a frickin' advertisement, preview to Rome. Is that what this really was? We're just basically being set up and indoctrinated such that we can actually use this essentially this incorrectly explained version of an incorrectly explained how to Take Smart Notes by Zonke Arens. Thank you so much, Shu. You're freaking awesome.
And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't intend or mean to like actually, put a shoe in my mouth and, just shit on Shu too hard. I'm just kidding, but seriously. No, I'm I will say this is I've been a little bit critical and a little bit abrasive, as you can probably tell in this reaction video to Shu. However, he does seem like a really interesting guy, and a he creates very clear videos, which probably helps a lot of people. I'm just here to say and kind of nitpick at a lot of the things that I think are a little bit wrong with Zettelkasten today, and that's just people essentially going through how to take smart notes and re-explaining it. And I'm sure a lot of Shu, maybe here we can like pull up. Let's check out. Maybe Shu has some other videos that are really good. Let's see what he's got here. What's his most popular videos? That's so funny. His most popular video is the one that is actually probably his most incorrect video, because I guarantee, like, his other stuff, like, look, how to take smart notes in Zettelkasten method in Rome research, right? Like, cool. Like, that's what he's really doing. He's really actually using it in Rome research. All of this other stuff, they look like really good, helpful videos. But the problem is Shu, and he's not the only one. There's like, if you search Zettelkasten on YouTube,
Effective
let's just
knowledge
look at that.
management methods.
Like, I guarantee every single one of these people, maybe besides her, oh yeah, I think I watched her. She used to be digital. Also, this guy, he's actually 100% right, this Scott Shepherd guy, but he's also a jackass and mean and abrasive in his videos. So stay away from him. But look at like all of these guys, especially this guy, he's probably doing God, maybe if you want me to do more of these reaction videos, let me know. And we're just gonna tear through every single one of these, and I'll, hopefully help explain it to you. Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. Hit that, smash that freaking like button, and let me know if you want to see more of these reaction videos. And at least I hope that I cleared some of this up with you and kind of showed you specifically how the modern Zettelkasten teachings of the common era are incorrect and unhelpful to people that are noobs and just trying to get started. So anyway, hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see more reaction videos, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and always remember to stay crispy, my friend. Peace.